Thank you so much for your time. I know that it is an early Saturday morning and you could have been anywhere doing anything, but you are here with us at On Purpose and I Stand nonprofit, and we are going to be going over dismantling the myths of sexual assault in the Black and Brown community. And this program is hosted by On Purpose Enrichment and I Stand nonprofit. So we're going to jump right into this discussion. And the reason why it's important for us to have this type of topic discussion is because these are the things that plague the community within our community, the Black and Brown community. And we need to talk about the things that we are misinformed about. That way we'll be able to move within the right direction. So a few myths that is amongst the community that we are a part of are certain things such as pedophiles and rapists and sex offenders look a particular way. And I believe that that is based off of a lot of movies and TV shows and things that perpetuates something that is false, that there's a particular look to these type of offenses. Secondly, sex offenders can be recognized by the type of vehicle they drive. Now, I know that that sounds a bit absurd, but when you think about it, the movies and TV shows in Hollywood, they like to perpetuate that the sex offenders are people that are driving around in their neighborhoods with vans with no windows, trying to give children candy. And although that does happen, it's not the main way for sex offenders to attract their victims, or those that sexually assault people to attract their victims. So getting out of that mind state that you can spot it, we definitely need to dismiss that thought because it's not 100% true. Thirdly, women could never sexually assault someone. It's impossible. And this is absolutely a myth. Women can sexually assault children, boys, girls, men. When you have women that are that specifically prey on people that are men that are younger than them, in a wide age group, like teenagers and those that cannot legally consent, that is considered sexual assault. The fourth one that I have here is, if I keep my child away from quote unquote Uncle Earl, or tell him or her not to wear shorts, he can't assault him or her. And that's just absolutely not true at all and not good practice, which is one thing that we're going to dive deep into today. If there is an inkling, or if there is past experience that this person has sexually assaulted someone, the best thing to do would be to, one, keep your child and yourself away from that person completely, and just keeping in mind that it only takes a second for a sexual assault to occur. And once the damage has been done, I'm sorry, or I didn't know, it doesn't take away the trauma and pain that comes from those situations happening. So lastly, and of course this isn't all of the myths that's amongst the community, but just the ones that we're going to try to hit on today. Lastly, my child would absolutely tell me if they were being abused sexually. Regardless of how well you think your relationship is with your children, or with nieces and nephews, there are things that are surrounding those feelings, physically and emotionally, that would prevent your child from talking about being sexually abused. And so we're going to dive into that as well. What are those surrounding things when associated with that trauma? I have a few statistics here that I would like to share just to give us an idea of what these things look like within the community. So in 2017, the total number of sexual assault incidents reported in Texas was 18,112. This represented a 1.3 decrease when compared to 2016, which is always good news to have those type of decreases. These incidents involved 18,750 victims, down 7.3% from 2016, and 18,774 offenders, up to 5% from 2016. The majority of sexual assaults occur near or within the victim's home. That's very important. We're going to dive into that as well. So 55% were at home, 15% were in an open public area, 12% were at a relative's home, 10% were in an enclosed public area, and 8% were at school or work. In 9 out of 10 sexual assaults, the victim knew their offender. 93% of child victims of sexual assault knew their offender. 59% were acquaintances, 34% were family members, and 7% were strangers to the victim. So, what does that tell us? It tells us that it's not the man that's driving around in the van. These are people that families knew, that the children knew, that the people knew, that were in close proximity and able to come into their home, invited into their home even. So when we think about that, it's not a big it's not a big it's a big discrepancy between what the media is telling us is happening and what's actually happening in the community. So most perpetrators of sexual assault are never held accountable for their crime. 91% of sexual assault victims did not report to law enforcement, and over 94% of rapists roam free, with only 3% ever spending a day in jail. Sexual Assault Awareness Month is scheduled for April of each year, and the color for the sexual assault awareness is teal, hence the color of my shirt, to represent, basically giving awareness to this topic, because again, it is something that plagues our community, and we need to have discussions on how we can move forward and get those numbers down even more. So, And I Stand nonprofit is a 501c3 organization that focuses on challenges and life-changing situations that can affect one's well-being in minority communities. While And I Stand targets the Black community, And I Stand supports all communities of color to be empowered and confront the constraints of mental health issues, rape and sexual assault, domestic violence, and alcohol drug abuse through advocacy, education, and support. The mission of And I Stand is to cultivate an environment that implements optimal commitment to the growth and wellness of individuals and families in minority communities that suffer from mental health issues, rape and sexual assault, domestic violence, and alcohol and drug influence through activism, advocacy, education, and support. So we're so happy to have And I stand with us today here at On Purpose. And On Purpose, our mission is to rebuild lives on their path to independence. As a family service agency, we provide the connection and expertise to help meet the emotional and social challenges of struggling families. Our approach is holistic, measurable, and available to all, regardless of their ability to pay. So at this time, we will go ahead and jump into introducing our panelists. We're going to have a conversation, a light conversation on a heavy topic, so that we can get the conversation started here, and then hopefully go into your homes so that you'll have the conversation with your families as well. So I would first like to introduce Dr. J.Ko McCowan. Dr. J.Ko McCowan is a founder and executive director of And I Stand nonprofit. She is a published author, consultant, and enterprise project portfolio professional. Dr. McCowan holds a doctorate in business administration, is a certified HR scholar, and a Lean Six Sigma Black Belt professional. Dr. McCowan was just named as a 2022 Houston Business Journal 40 Under 40 honoree and has been recognized in the past as the 2020 Houston Area Zeta Phi Beta Centennial Scholarship recipient, acknowledged as a 2019 Houston Young Professional and Entrepreneur Impact Award Business Leader nominee, and was recognized by executive leaders as a 2017 University of Texas Medical Branch Emerging Leader. She leads and is a member of several service professional organizations such as Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, the NAACP, Houston Area Urban League Young Professionals, and the SHRM, to name a few. In addition, Dr. McCowan plays a key role as a social action leader and mentor in the community. She serves to fight for causes that affect communities of color. Thank you so much, Dr. McCowan, for joining us. We are definitely blessed to have you with us.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Next, we have Judge Joy Thomas. As a native Houstonian, my career began as a cadet at the University of Houston Downtown Police Officers Academy, where I earned a Texas Peace Officer certification and an award for honor graduate. I spent several years serving my community as a police officer at various police departments. I eventually applied to the Legacy Department of Treasury and was hired as a customs inspector, which is currently known as the Customs and Border Protection within the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. I was awarded Academic Honor Graduate for the highest academic grade in the Academy class and overall Outstanding Graduate for the highest combined score in academics, fitness, and firearms. That's a bad lady, y'all. I excelled to the position of Special Agent with ICE. I earned another fitness award and achieved my first federal indictment in Memphis, Tennessee within 6 months of my graduating the academy. My time as an ICE agent led to my re-entry into the world of higher education in my mid-30s. I earned a BS in political science from the University of Houston downtown and a JD from the Thurgood Marshall School of Law. I am a licensed attorney and practiced criminal defense and family law for 7 years. While practicing law, I began teaching political science at the University of Houston downtown, teaching police cadets at the UHD Criminal Justice Training Center, teaching trial simulation at Thurgood Marshall School of Law. In 2020, I was appointed as a magistrate in Houston County Criminal Courts, where I now serve as judge of probable cause court. In my spare time, I enjoy spending time with my nieces and my dog, Pepper. So happy to have you, Judge Thomas. Thank you for joining us for this discussion today.
The pleasure is mine. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Lastly, I'll introduce myself. I am Jessica M. Smith. I'm the Director of Community Education for On Purpose Enrichment. I'm dedicated to the advancement of the community where my humble beginnings began, the Acres Home community. I'm a graduate of Prairie View A&M University with a bachelor's in criminal justice and a master's in human science. And my career began with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, where I was a sex offender parole officer, and I was later promoted to unit supervisor for the sex offender caseload. I'm a proud member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated by way of the Omega Gamma chapter, and a dedicated member to the Order of the Eastern Star. So I am so very proud to be here, and I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and we can go ahead and begin the discussion. So I will start off with the first question, which is open to any of our panelists. Alrighty. So why do you feel the Black and Brown communities avoids speaking about this topic?
I yield to the judge if you want to start.
I'm gonna yield to the professional. You go ahead, doctor.
No problem. So this topic is very timely because I do believe that, for so long, generational wise, we have not addressed this topic. And I mean, it goes back even in slavery days, right? Black women were taken advantage of, right? And so I just think that it's generational. Why we don't talk about these things. It was taboo at one point, and I don't want to say this, and I won't say this is for all Black and Brown families.
Mm-hmm.
But for example, if someone's, and I've heard this several times, my mother was dating someone. And so I tried to tell her that he was touching on me, or
Mm-hmm.
I felt some sort of way. And my mom would be like, girl, well, you need to dress different, or you need to don't look at him a certain way, or I don't believe you. And even the creepy uncle that we talk about as well. Not saying everybody has a creepy uncle, but that one uncle that would molest the kids, and it'll be like, okay, well, we don't want to put the family out there. Don't tell nobody. But
Mm-hmm.
we need to talk about that stuff because nowadays, since sexual assault and rape is, I mean, it's everywhere. There are months that address it. There's a month for rape and sexual assault, rape a month for domestic violence. It's a month for everything now, right? And so now that it's out there, now you have people from the previous generations that are coming out to say, wow, I was molested back in the day and I was told not to say anything, or
Mm-hmm.
nobody believed me. So I had to keep the secret. And it's crazy because I even have older family members that's like, man, it was a lot that went on back in the day when I
Mm-hmm.
was a little girl or when I was a little boy, but I couldn't say that then. And so even now, it's hard for us to say things because who's gonna believe us? If we
Mm-hmm.
go to our own families and they say, well, don't say nothing, then it's like, okay, well, okay, who do we go to? And so I'm just happy now that we're having platforms like this to where we can actually talk about these things, and come out and just be real about it. It's crazy because I know before we even started, the judge was saying that, a lot of victims don't report those things. And I was looking at statistics, and out of 15 Black women who were raped, only one would report.
Hmm.
So those statistics are alarming. I'll go ahead and yield to the judge with that.
I think that from my perspective, I'm not a victim, thank you, Lord, but I've come across several as an officer, and as even as a customs officer. I can tell you, I remember opening up a container looking for dope and finding people there in a 40-foot container. And it was very clear that that was trafficking. Like, these were all women, young women. And so I think that locally, maybe it goes unreported. In my experience, I see where some people just don't believe anything is actually going to happen. He's going to get out of jail and he's not going to get punished, and he's just going to come right back over here, harming me. And the
Hmm.
police ain't going to be here all the time to save me from him.
Right.
And so I just want to, speak out, and I can't speak for every officer of the court, but just know that, there are people in place that do care about justice. We want to make sure that if something happened and the truth gets revealed. Okay, so there is a process to it. Every defendant has a right to have due process. So I don't want people to feel discouraged that because there is the fact gathering and the evidence gathering and there's questions going on, that somebody just automatically doesn't believe you. What's
Right.
happening is that we're letting the justice system work to find enough evidence to determine what happened. If something happened, it doesn't mean that if something happened, the person won't get punished. And I also think that it's not getting reported because of the little bit that I know about battered woman syndrome. Maybe we can go back to the doctor and she can speak more on that. But I'm reading in these fact patterns where I can feel the fear of this person while I'm reading the fact pattern of what happened, of what allegedly happened, and the person's just scared.
Hmm.
They're genuinely afraid to say anything because if he gets out on bail, now there's going to be some retaliation because she told.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I think that, or who's going to pay the rent while he's in jail? Who's going to help me with the kids? Like, whatever it is that's a part of this cycle. I think that some of these women have been battered for so long that they're it's a separate issue now. Now the fact that they're being battered is not the sole issue. The fact that they're caught and they're stuck in this
Hmm.
situation and they don't know how to get unstuck.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, that I would just say that goes back to having more platforms like these to educate women and men, because men are victims as well, to let them know that there are a lot of resources out there. And it's crazy because even with my nonprofit, a lot of people don't take advantage of the resource. I'm like, hey, we want to give this to you. There's free things that we want to give to you, free resources. And I think that even if it's just one, we still keep pushing. We just want to get out there and serve the people. But I also think too, think about when we watch the news, how many women, how, in the last week, how many times have we heard on the news that the man went back, killed
Hmm.
the girl, and then went and killed themselves?
Absolutely.
So when you see stuff like that, it's like, okay, like what is the system doing? There was a situation where my nonprofit, we helped this lady. She got out. She had a village, she got out, but that same man went killed his ex-girlfriend, shot her child, and then killed himself.
Hmm.
And she was like, that could have been me. This just happened a couple of weeks ago in Houston. So
Yes.
it's like, okay, sometimes I do feel like that the system definitely fails us. We got to prove it. We got to show, you got to show all these text messages. You got to do, and it's like, come on. What I mean, you're not gonna do nothing until now I'm killed. I'm dead. So then now what's next?
Yeah.
So I guess for me, it's more of the advocacy to ensure that there are stronger laws that can protect victims, because while the law is working, trying to work, it's like it's still people getting killed. The laws are not strong enough, and that's where it's going to take people like you and I to advocate, to lobby for laws that's going to continue to strengthen the protection for
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to go back and touch on something that that was mentioned. Well, kind of you both mentioned um just being in the position as women or well, I'll say adults, as being adults to speak up and say, "Hey, this happened to me," reporting it to somebody. But let's look at that from a different lens. If adults don't have, and I don't know if it's courage, I don't know exactly what it is, but if they won't report what is happening to them, imagine what's happening to the children. Because if the adults won't do it, how can we expect the children to do it? And just understanding the things that surrounding what happens to children is, it's a confusing state. Sexual feelings and touches feel good, so you feel guilty about that feeling good. So you're like, oh well, maybe I deserved it because I liked it. Or maybe it was my fault. Maybe I can't say anything. And then on top of what the perpetrator is actually telling them, don't say nothing to nobody. If you do, I'm gonna kill your mama. I'm gonna kill your cousin. I'm gonna kill your little brother. Don't say anything. So my question would be, what would you tell your nieces, or what would you tell your daughter and son, realistically, that would give them the comfort to come and tell you if there was something that was going on?
I straight up tell my kids, I don't do, we don't let nobody touch the no spot. Don't let nobody touch your bum bums. I said, if somebody touches your vagina, if somebody touches your butt, you need to come tell me. It's a no. And I straight up have the conversation. I don't sugarcoat anything. I am forthcoming with those conversations. I mean, every look, it's statistics that say every 68 seconds someone is an American is sexually assaulted, and then every 9 minutes a child is.
Hmm.
And so you have to make sure that you are aware of your surroundings. I don't let my and it's very unfortunate, but I don't let my kids go spend a night in everybody's house. It just is what it is. If I have not vetted you and I don't know you like that, they will not be spending a night at the house. Even then, sometimes I'm kind of leery about that because I don't want anything to happen on my watch. But I do educate my kids about when you're getting touched inappropriately, you come and tell me, you go tell your teacher that is inappropriate.
What I would add to that is, I mean, I don't have any children. I have two nieces, 16 and 10, and I've been teaching them since they could speak the actual terms to their body parts. So I agree with you, doctor, that I teach them actual terms of their body parts. But I teach them, and I may be, because of what I've seen in law enforcement, I may be and going far beyond, but I teach them, if anybody touches you anywhere, you let me know. Like, some kids are, they're like us in that they have gut instincts.
Hmm.
They know when something ain't right.
Hmm.
And if somebody rubs my niece along her arm, no, that's not a sexual organ, but if it made her feel some type of way, I want to know about it. That could be
Yes.
the precursor to, he just may
Yes.
want to see if he can touch her and she get away with it.
Exactly.
I tell them, like, you don't sit in nobody's lap but your daddy.
Hmm.
Things like that. When we have sleepovers, when I was married for 12 years. He went someplace else. Like, he
Hmm.
literally slept someplace else for the weekend. I don't care if it was the Hyatt or at a homeboy's house, but there were no men
Yeah.
in the house, because I know my nieces, I don't know all their friends. And I want to let the parents know, there's gonna they don't, they know me, they may not know my husband. There's gonna be no man here, period.
Hmm.
So that, to protect both of them, it protects it may make the girls feel more safe. And there's no way anybody could say my husband touched them if he wasn't here.
Exactly.
You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying? So it's just a matter of letting them know. Sometimes somebody may walk across and just hold the child by their foot at a pool and be like, hey, honey. And if that made her feel some type of way, I want you to come and tell me he touched me here. and it made me feel this way. So because I teach them their body parts, they're going to know, I'm going to be able to ascertain whether it was sexual or not, but at least I'll know it made them feel some type of way.
Absolutely.
And then also establishing those boundaries, letting them know about personal spaces.
Mm-hmm.
That's very, very important. I can walk in a room and maybe Jordan is, my daughter's in here and she might say, Mommy, no, I'm getting dressed. Okay, let me go ahead and get out because I want to respect your boundaries. Great job, Jordan. And so doing that, even, my son might be running around and maybe he'll go to the restroom. Jordan will open up the door and not knock sometimes. He'll be like, no, Jordan, personal space. Be
Mhm.
like, okay. So it's just making sure that you kind of educate them on that and then give them kudos for doing that. Great
Mhm.
job. I'm so proud of you. That, and even do that with me. Get them used to doing that with you as well, because we do know that sometimes it is the parents who will sell their own child or touch
Absolutely.
their own child or sexually assault and molest their own children.
Yes, absolutely. And then accusations go a very, very long way. Working in TDC, I have seen many a times where there were actually people that were innocent, but because they may have said something or made up a story, or those things happen as well. But it's important to teach our children when not to, don't cry wolf. If it actually happens, let's talk about it, let's get it resolved, believing our children, and like Judge Thomas said, just going through the proper things to let justice work the way that it's supposed to work. So I totally agree with that. So but from that conversation, what I heard you both say was, don't sugarcoat the names of your body parts, because I've heard people say that he touched my cookie. Well, what what does that mean? What exactly does that mean? So thank y'all for offering those things, and I'm happy that we're having a conversation surrounding it. The next question I have is talking about consent. Um, and I kind of want to preference this with college type living. A lot of gentlemen, I know, and women in college don't quite understand what it means to offer consent. So, if we had to do this for a college group, what would we say to them? What does consent look like?
I would tell um I would tell the youngsters to let the other person undress themselves.
Okay.
When you're doing when I was investigating such types of offenses, who undressed whom, how the clothes came off was an issue.
Okay.
Um, I would I would not infer anything other than yes or undressing yourself as consent. Like I wouldn't infer consent as going over to somebody's house.
Okay.
I wouldn't infer consent as letting somebody drive you home and walk you to the door.
Right.
Those things, like for those conversations that are, well, she came over or he came over, he had to know what was going on. None of
Mm,
that. None of that is consent. So I would make it clear to them that just those simple uh, there's no such thing as nonverbal communication when it comes
exactly.
to consent.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. I love that, Judge. Consent. It's so crazy because we have a saying that no means stop. And
Hmm.
so if somebody tells you no, it's an automatic stop. It ain't no, oh well, her no really meant yes, though. Her no said no. His no meant no. And so if it's not it's not a mutual agreement to anything, it's a no. And so even when we talk about, it's crazy because I remember in in college going to some of the parties and we would see women, we would see the girls and they'll be, drunk. And so you would hear like, certain things. And you as a college student, you're like, oh, she drunk. Oh my God, why is she drunk like that? But we don't think about the fact that she's probably drunk because maybe somebody slipped something in her drink. We don't know why she's drunk. And then you'll hear certain things, or you'll see guys that'll be like, we gonna get her today. She
Mhm.
gonna And so it's the first thing, and I really want to educate the men and women and just anybody, okay? When you see that, don't automatically judge anybody because you don't know what happened. And so just because somebody is drunk and they might be touchy feely and all that other stuff, it didn't mean that you need to take advantage of them and proceed to have some type of sexual intercourse or whatever with that individual. And I really want the students to know about that. I need them to know about the Title IX office on campus as
Mhm.
well, as a resource. If you are ever in that predicament, that Title IX office is there and will help you. And well, that's what they're supposed to do.
Right.
That's what they're supposed to do. So definitely, it's some resources. There are Title IX office at even within your organization. If you're working for a professional organization, they have Title IX. They know what it is as well. And so, just get familiar with that. But consent is a mutual understanding and agreement that something is going to happen. And if you
Right.
didn't get that, then it's a no go. Don't even try it.
Absolutely.
I would add to that now we're talking about intoxication. Be when it comes to consent, be careful with trying to getting. I would tell youngsters, be careful with trying to get consent from an intoxicated person,
Mm,
Right.
because I'm reading from the law book. The definition of intoxication is the disturbance of mental or physical capacity resulting from the introduction of any substance into the body. So
Mhm.
if you are currently under a condition where your mental or physical capacity has been disturbed, you can't make a educated decision about whether someone can or cannot.
Right.
You can't logically, you can't give consent. You could be saying yes and you don't know what you're saying.
Mhm.
So don't indulge. I would tell youngsters, men and women, young ladies and young men, don't try to do it with a person who is intoxicated,
Mhm.
because that may come back to haunt you, because that you're going to be hard it's going to be hard to prove that they gave valid consent while they were intoxicated.
oh
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's a good
It's a
point.
it's an interesting topic, consent. There is a documentary on Netflix called Our Father, and I'm sure plenty of people have heard about it. It's basically a fertility doctor that women would go to him to get artificially insemination, and he was inseminating them with his own sperm, and he has like over 80 children, and they had no idea, but they could not charge him with sexual assault, rape, because it has to have two components, which is if someone was to consider to have raped them, force, and they did not consent to it. But so because he did not force himself on them, they couldn't charge him with that. The only reason that he was even arrested was because he lied to the government and said that he didn't do it. And he only got a $500 fine because of that. So, and so those children, his children, quote unquote, did try, they worked to change that law so that it would, be considered rape moving forward, because there are a bunch of doctors, unfortunately, that has
Yeah.
done that, fertility doctors. And so they're just catching them with this. But I just said that because that just goes to show you consent plays a major part in these type of topics. So I
Oh
just wanted
yeah.
to, yeah.
That was I had actually watched it. I was like, okay, so that law, and they made that law in the state of Indiana, but
Hmm.
it's still on a federal level. It's nothing that protects
Yep.
any of the victims, if that were to happen, which is very unfortunate. And it was just very sad to see the stories, because even he had support, that particular doctor, from people that say, oh, he's a good man, and he's wonderful, but yet you have over 90, actually it's over 90 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're not kids now, but they're, you have 90.
Yeah.
So imagine you being a husband, and then you talk about, hey, my wife is gonna go and she's gonna get the aunt. She goes there, and you're thinking it's gonna be you, and it's the
Mm-hmm.
doctor who implants his semen in your what? That is whew,
Yeah.
that was cold.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
That
gone
was cold.
I've gone through 4 rounds of in vitro, and I cannot imagine
Yeah.
having somebody else, any sperm but my ex-husband's sperm put in me. That would be so intrusive. Like,
Yeah.
I
Oh
would feel
my
dirty,
God.
you know.
Wait, and then the thing that made it bad worse is, I think the last sister, like his last daughter, she said that he was her doctor.
Yes.
And so basically he was filling on his daughter. And she felt some sort of way about that when she found out
As she
about
should.
it. She was like, that was like my dad.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you that in the Texas Penal Code, every state has their own penal code.
Okay.
So we're dealing on a state level, not a federal level. But in the Texas Penal Code, sexual assault is under section 22.011. And with regard to our topic, what we're talking about right now, it gives the elements of sexual assault. A person commits an offense if the person intentionally or knowingly causes the penetration of the anus or sexual organ of another person by any means without the person's consent. So then it goes on to say, under subsection B, a sexual assault under subsection A1, which is what I just read from, is without consent if the other person is, and then it lists all these things that you're automatically without consent if you
Mhm.
fall under one of these. Clergyman is there, medical professional is there,
Okay.
and it says mental health services are there, employee of a facility where the other person is a resident.
Mm.
So Texas has addressed certain positions of authority where there shall be no consent. You are without consent if you are a person under a particular position of authority. So at least our legislature has addressed it. That's in section 22.011. And sexual assault in Texas is a second degree felony.
Mm-hmm.
It holds a range of punishment from 2 to 20 years in TDC, uh, or a $10,000 fine, up to a $10,000 fine, or both. So they can get anywhere between 2 and 20 years, from 0 to $10,000 fine, one of those or both of
That was going to be my next question.
them.
What
I'm
are the
sorry.
penalties? So no, thank you. Thank you for addressing it. What are the penalties if someone is convicted for this type of crime? So you said up 2 to 20
It's
years,
mhm. two
and
to
then
20 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. What, I'm old school, I call it TDC. It's actually
absolutely,
TDCJ, Texas
yes,
Department of Criminal Justice. 2 to 20 years, and that's what would be the determinant. Like in our courts, you have two trials. You have the guilt innocence phase, and then you have the punishment phase. So either the jury or the judge would determine the punishment phase if you are convicted and found guilty, and that they can give you anywhere between 2 and 20 years, or they can give you up to a $10,000 fine, or both.
okay,
The sad part about that, though, and I know I had a client who was sexually assaulted, and the offender got out within 2 years, and so she was scared. She was like, Jay, I'm so scared. Dr. J, help me. Like, what do you, I mean, and it's sad because this man did some heinous things to her, right? And only got 2 years.
yeah,
And then I think he may have, I don't know if he even served the whole time, but when he got out, he reached out to her. She changed the number. He found her. He
Wow.
found her. And so I'm wondering, Is it just they get out and there's nothing else? They just get out to do whatever? I mean, is there anything else that we can do to keep them accountable? We know that they're going to have a record. We know, we already know that, but is there some type of is there anything to where we're monitoring these individuals?
Well, there's, if they haven't served their entire sentence, if they're let out early, they're on parole.
Yeah.
So, like if you get 2 years and you haven't served 2 years, those, if you get out in 16 months, the rest of those months don't just go away. You know what I'm saying? So you're if you are on parole for the remainder of that time. So you have, it's called community supervision. So you have a parole officer to report to. And unfortunately, the same way in your example, the same way the predator found her, unfortunately, victims have homework and they need to find the predator to keep track of them. So
Mm.
if he's not, if he is not, if he's doing something he's not supposed to be doing, if he's on your doorstep, if he's showing up at the park where you take your kids, you need to be able to call the parole division and report it so they'll know. Otherwise, they're not going to know.
And
And
that's yeah,
they also
yeah.
have, in some instances during the trial phase, you may want to impress upon the state that you want there to be a condition of him having to report to register as a sex offender.
Oh yeah.
And
I
there
thought that was
there
automatic.
are laws for not registering. If he fails to register, that's a felony.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that was automatic that they had to be registered as a sex offender. But I know some of them don't.
Right.
Um,
And so but there is it's a new case. That would be a new case. Fail to register as a sex offender is a felony.
Mm-hmm.
That, and it would have its own due process proceeding in court, separate from the original proceeding.
so
But if you don't,
imagine
but you would have to keep up with this person, and that's
that's
why I
what
say
I'm
it's kind of like
saying.
homework for a victim,
And it's not
unfortunately.
even, and that really is mental stress, and it messes with victims mentally because they're constantly looking over their back. And like for this particular client, she had to move. That. She just had to move. And even then he tried to find her then through a family member. So it's it's one of these situations where it is very important to have continuous support. If you know somebody that has been through that, you make sure that if possible, you are there to support them if you can, or offer resources. There's a lot of resources, and we just have to continue to put those resources out there. When she moved, I ended up reaching out to another nonprofit there so they can be her village, so
Mm-hmm.
they can be her support circle as well. And so it is important that we have those things. And then the good thing about that nonprofit is they had a security component. So it was, if you felt like you needed someone to walk you somewhere or be there for you, they had that component, which is amazing. And so it's just one of those things where you have to be a support system for those individuals because it's hard. When they get out, you say they have homework, but mentally it is draining.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It is. It's a lot. It is a whole lot to keep up with. You do have sexual different type of sexual um crimes that people have been convicted of that they don't qualify for like the lifetime sex offender registry, because some people, they once they own it, you can't come off. But there are some that is just on for 10 years and then they basically fall off and don't have to register anymore. So those type of things play a factor. And then with also with parole, they instituted something that looks great on paper. It looks great. Child safety zones. So that basically means if any way that they can get to where they're supposed to go, the grocery store, their home, the bank, they cannot pass by schools or places where children commonly gather, so parks. But the statistics tells us that it's not them that's driving by the schools and picking up kids. That's not what happened. That's not what's happening. What's happening is it's the neighbor that you invited in your house. It's the cousin and the uncle and the brother and the sister. It's those people. So those child safety zones, like I said, looks good on paper, but it doesn't make sense according to what the statistics is saying is happening. So I talked about this when I was working in TDC. Like, this is not making sense because I had at least 40 people on my caseload, and 20 or 25 of them were sex offenders. You have to ask them, well, why did you do what you did? A lot of them were victims themselves. They were victimized as children, so they did what they were taught to do. And a lot of them, when trauma has occurred, you are stuck at that age. So think about it. If someone was sexually assaulted at the age of 6, 9 times out of 10, they are stuck in a 6-year old or a adolescent mind. So they are attracted to those that are adolescents because they are stuck in that trauma at that age. So they will go to these sex offender counseling because they have to participate in sex offender treatment. They have to admit to their offense, because if they can't, they're going back to prison, because you have to admit to it, even if they don't believe what they did was sexual assault. And they're working through these programs, but what people need to realize, they cannot be cured from this. This is not something that you can take medicine for to fix their mind. Once they, it's kind of like they say with the alcoholics. Once you're alcoholic, you always are alcoholic. Once you're a sex offender, whether you register or not, once, if you never sexually assault anyone else, you're still considered a sex offender, because unfortunately it's in you. It's in you to do it. So the all of those type of things, and I don't want to minimize like the perpetrators, but they are victims as well. And castration doesn't work. That doesn't matter, because it's something that's mental. It's something that they have to, they can't be cured, but they can be healed from the trauma that they have experienced and caused.
I would add to when you mentioned the child safety zones.
Hmm.
It brought to mind the in my line of experience. um, I find an alarming amount of issues where the bus stop, the school bus stop,
Hmm.
was a place where the children were being preyed upon,
Hmm.
and especially those activity buses that drop them off at one big place at the end of the day, and they have to walk. It's not the school bus stop that's near their home. It's
Hmm.
like the elementary school that's at the front of the neighborhood, and then everybody has to walk wherever they go.
Right.
So parents just or caregivers don't sleep on the school bus stops,
Hmm.
because that is going to be hard to police the when it comes to child safety zones. How are you going to police school bus stops?
Right.
They can change depending on the need and all that kind of stuff,
Absolutely.
but and that's a place where anybody can walk past, drive past, and appear approachable, but they have ill intent in approaching the children. And so I've seen way too many instances where that was the place where the child was initially touched,
Yeah.
was at the school bus stop.
Yes. And I mean, I agree that it does happen. There is statistics where there's a small amount of people that are, sexually assaulted, like we saw in the statistics, but the majority of it is who we invite into our lives, and who we invite into our children's lives, and who we invite into our nieces and nephews' lives. So we definitely need to be conscious of that, and not, in our community, we always talk what happens in our house, stay in our house. But sometimes Uncle Earl got to go to jail. Uncle Earl got to get up out of here. You're on mute, Dr. J.
I was saying he got to go.
He got, Uncle Earl got to go to jail. So, I encourage everybody to, if it is an inkling, maybe have a conversation about it. Don't leave it for chance, because, again, it only takes a second for something to happen, not only to children, but to adults as well. And we living in a society where, like the gentleman had sexually, it was, I know he was in college. I can't remember exactly where, but he had sexually assaulted someone at a party, and the judge basically told him, "Oh, we don't want to ruin his life. It was just a one-time thing." We sometimes we have to be our own advocates, support our own people, lift up our own people that's in our community that have been victimized, and try to keep them encouraged and to do what is necessary so that it doesn't happen to anyone else.
Yeah, yeah. We have to definitely keep up the good fight. I know a lot of times it's definitely a blow when you see people get away with things and you're like, man, this person did this to somebody and they just living their life like nothing happened. But we need more advocates. We need more people out there that's going to fight for the victims and really advocate and be a voice for them because it's hard to talk about it. And like I expressed to y'all early, it is hard to talk about that situation, but
Right.
we need people like Judge Thomas. I know she's advocating out there for the victims. Even though she's not one, she's still advocating. And
Mm,
so we need people like her, like you, everybody else to just advocate and be a voice for those victims because it to we talked about this early. Mentally, it is very hard and very draining. And we take on so much, especially in the Black and brown community. We're taught to hold things in, to be strong. We good. Ain't nothing wrong with us. Every time you ask, hey, how you doing? You good?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I'm good. But you don't really be good.
Yeah.
So where there are some people that may not have it in them, let's continue to be a voice for each other and really support our culture.
Yeah, and creating safe spaces
Definitely.
to be able to do that.
I would add that if I mean, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, doctor. Like, when you're not good, just don't get conditioned to say you're not good. It's sometimes it's hard when somebody asks you if you're good and you be like, no, I'm overwhelmed, I want to cry. Like,
Yeah.
that's not the average.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But if somebody cares enough about you to ask you, care enough about yourself to tell the truth.
Exactly.
They may give you a good word that day that may help you. But I would just encourage those victims to, if you're not strong enough to report it or to deal with it or to move forward at the time, just maybe we should be just pushing just the help that they need. Because back to what we were talking about before this, um I did look up the statute of limitation, and it is 10 years for on the criminal side, and for the civil side it's 5 years, and that's 10 years. The statute of limitation on sexual assault in Texas is 10 years from the date of the alleged incident for
Okay.
criminal proceedings, and it's 5 years from the date of the alleged incident for civil proceedings. So you can um, fight your fight in criminal court and in civil court. If you didn't have insurance and you had to go to a therapist and it cost you $100 a session, and you like your punitive damages, your pain and your suffering, you can go to a civil court and address that. That's different than criminal court, where the punishment is the jailable offense.
Hmm.
So I would just encourage that, maybe if you were 21 at the time you were in college, but now you're 30 and you're stronger, that 10 years is not up, and
Hmm.
you can still report it.
Yeah, that's good to know because
Yeah.
even it's it's good to know, but then at the same time, think about our aunts and uncles who've held it in for so long. That statute of limitation is up. It's past the 10 years, and so they're still living with that. But to your point, if we're educating people and setting those expectations that hey, it's 10 years, make sure you report it, and now that they know the date, because I know some people who didn't know the time frame, and then when they tried to report it, it was a blow because they were told, "Oh yeah, the statute of limitation is up." You know
Or
what I'm
you,
saying? So
and I'll tell you this, you also stand the risk of being told, if you're within the statute of limitation, that there's no more evidence.
Right.
So it is still better to report it as soon as you can. But I will say that we have been given recent instances where, even if it's years later, if there's evidence to be had, or just the veracity of the witness's statement, you know still fight the fight. I mean, we have, we'll call that the Bill Cosby effect.
Yeah.
It can there's still a trial to be had.
Yeah. So, Judge Thomas, I have a question. So, if and this will be the one of the last questions, and then we'll do final statements. Um, so, let's say someone is sexually assaulted. What's the first thing that you would say that they would do legally?
Call the police
Okay.
and don't wash. Don't resist the urge to want to scrub it off.
Right.
Your body is a crime scene,
Mm.
and so you need to call the police and go get a rape kit done at some hospital as soon as you can.
Okay. Wow, this has been a plethora of information and discussion. I am very excited.
Can I go back? Can I go back?
Absolutely.
It's crazy because the first thing that victims want to do is they want to wash it off.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
They want to wash it off. They like, ugh, they
Mm-hmm.
feel dirty, they feel nasty. So it's hard. Let me just say too, mentally, if that happens, you're gonna be all over the place and you are going to want to wash off. But don't do it. Go straight to the police.
Right.
Go straight to the police.
And I will say this: if you are toying around with calling the police, and I'm not gonna say toying around. That was the wrong word. If you're going back and forth with whether or not you want to call the police, go to the hospital and still get a rape kit done, because sometimes based on what you tell that medical professional, they are compelled to call for you.
Right.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Also keep the there's a national number too as well. Now that might not be the first thing you want to do. It's like call somebody, but if you feel compelled, there is a national hotline, sexual assault hotline, and it's 1-800-656-HOPE. Again, that's 1-800-656-HOPE.
Thank you so much. So I'm just gonna do a real quick recap for everything that we talked about of importance today. Everything was important, and it's just very important. Make sure that if you are sexually assaulted, it's not anything to be ashamed by. It wasn't the dress that you had on. It wasn't not to be funny, but the hoochie daddy shorts that you maybe be wearing. It wasn't any of those things. You did not put yourself in a position to be sexually assaulted, because what you wear does not give anyone the right to touch you in ways that you did not consent to. And consent means yes. It means, as Judge Thomas said, undressing yourself or your partner undressing themselves is not 100% consent, but it puts you in the right mindset that you wouldn't be in a situation that you can't handle. When someone says no, no means stop. At that moment, at any time when your partner says no, whether it's and because wives and husbands can be sexually assaulted too, not to forget that. So when no means no at any level, making sure that you tell your children the correct names for their body parts in the event that they are touched inappropriately. They're able to come and tell someone and feel comfortable in telling someone. Um, Call the police if you're sexually assaulted, or go to the hospital so that you can get a rape kit done. We do have resources available. Definitely here at On Purpose, we are always here to advocate for you, and we can also get you in contact with And I Stand in the event you need their services as well. Let's see. And we can be contacted on these platforms. I'm just going to share my screen briefly. So this is the contact number for On Purpose. You can screenshot this, send it to anyone that you think would need these type of services. We have our phone number listed here. Our website is onpurpose.life, and all of our social media tags are onpurpose_life. And we're here to support you in any way that we can. We do offer free counseling. We're gearing that up for the fall to come. So if there's any type of situation that occurs where you need to speak with a therapist, we offer those services as well. And also the mayor's office has a great resource for domestic violence and human trafficking, along with those sexual assault components as well, where they are dedicated to offering some type of work skills to build, because a lot of time the perpetrators, the victims stay with perpetrators because of financial need, and so they teach them how to come up with a skill so they're able to make their own money to get out of those type of situations. Lastly, we do have a few events that are coming. We are having a fundraiser with the Casino Royale for On Purpose Enrichment to continue our great works within the community. So more information is going to be listed for that on our social media platforms, as well as emails going out. So if you're interested in attending or being a sponsor for this event, we would love to have you. So more information to come. And our next quarterly community education event, we will be discussing anxiety and social media, all those things surrounding trying to stay up on what's going on in these social media. What word am I looking for? For these personas, these social media personas, and those type of things. So we look forward to that being our first in-person community education event to come soon. And so again, I would just love to thank Dr. McCowan and Judge Thomas for joining us today. I definitely enjoyed y'all input on all of these topics. I hope that something that is said here today touches someone and able to provide resources to someone that are in need, and that the conversation continues to grow within our homes. So is there anything else anyone would like to add before we close out?
Mean stop.
Absolutely. No means stop. Thank you all so very much at this time. And so we thank you. And all of these recordings are going to be added to YouTube as well as our social media. So anyone that wasn't able to participate live, we definitely have the replay available. Thank you again, and we will see y'all next time.